Well, good morning, good afternoon. This is Scott over at ReadySquirrel.com. You can check out any of these articles that I guess you'd say I'm vlogging or podcasting. I'm not sure which one you would call it. It's a little bit confusing. Today's article is the best way to store rice long term. I am not a professional. I'm basically just sharing information with you that I find as I'm doing my research. And this is a pretty laid back. This isn't really scripted. Actually, I shouldn't say it's not really scripted. It's definitely not scripted. So you'll hear all my foibles and my coughs and, any other kind of disruption. Anyway, so let's get right down to it. My name is Scott. I have a website called ReadySquirrel.com. I write articles on things like survival, gardening, outdoor stuff. Today's article, again, is the best way to store rice long term. And I recently researched everything white rice to get as much information as I could before I start purchasing more bulk. I think I have like 200 pounds of rice right now, but it's just the big bulk bags that you get like from Costco or the big box stores. And I think it's important to have the ability to store stuff to get that 30 plus year shelf life that you can get out of white rice. So there are other ways to store rice. You can clean out old soda bottles and you can put oxygen absorbers in them and stuff like that. But I'm not actually dealing with that right now. I'm just looking at probably the more popular and probably the better ways to store rice if you're trying to get that 30 plus years out of your rice. So to answer the question, the best way to store rice long term, let's get right into it. The best long term white rice storage is in cool, dry environment in sealed number 10 cans or Mylar bags with an oxygen absorber inside the container. You hear a lot about freezing rice, and maybe you've got a walk-in freezer or something like that, and that would be an option. The downside of that is, what are you going to do if the electricity goes out? 1 and 2, most of us just have standard freezers. I mean, even if you have a chest freezer, it would have to almost be dedicated to just white rice if you were going to store it that way. You can actually jump to the sections if you go over to, again, ReadySquirrel.com and check out the article. I've got it broken down by various, I guess you'd say discussions. I don't know if that's the right way to say it. Various topics. I think that's a better word. So what are some long-term storage containers for rice? The containers you choose to store your rice are going to have a pretty big impact on how long your rice will last. And that pretty much goes for every food that you store. Are the bugs going to get at it? Is the light going to degrade it? Is there going to be air in the container and it's going to cause oxidation? Basically decreasing shelf life and increasing how fast food's going to spoil. Most food containers are not genuinely airtight, so the plastic containers that you put leftover spaghetti in and stuff, those aren't going to do it because they're not actually 100% airtight. So following is a list of long-term food storage containers that will provide airtight storage if you use them correctly. Quote unquote, if you use them correctly. I was actually surfing some of the survival blogs, and for a lot of people, it's trial and error. If you're using the vacuum machines and stuff like that, or if you're using Mylar bags, if you don't seal them correctly, or if you don't get all the air out, or if you don't use oxygen absorbers, the rice isn't going to last as long. So all these, when you're looking at shelf life, you're talking if the stuff is actually properly stored. So you have to do it right, is my point. Okay, so long-term storage containers for rice, pros and cons. Number 10 cans with food-safe enamel lining. The pros are they're not easily damaged. They easily keep a seal. They're the number one way to store rice for long-term storage if you're not considering price or anything else. The cans also keep light off of the rice, which will increase or decrease shelf life. And you're going to get a 30 plus year storage life for long grain white rice if you store them in number 10 cans. The cons, normally purchased for an extra expense. And again, the equipment to can your own stuff is going to cost you quite a bit more. So most of the equipment for canning is like manufacturing grade, and it's super expensive. So another popular long-term storage container for white rice is Mylar type bags, which are good for small quantities of food. That's the pro. Because the problem with this is, especially if you're doing it with, in big quantities, like say in 5-gallon buckets inside of a Mylar bag, once you open the Mylar bag, it's open. So the food is going to be open to the air. So the downside, they need to be vacuum sealed. The Mylar bags break pretty easily. The manufacturing quality on these bags is spotty. So you may get a batch of bad bags. You may have seals go south on you and not even know it. Again, the bags are easily damaged. Mylar bags are usually used, at least in the survival forums, people are using with the food grade buckets, which is an extra expense. And the Mylar bags by themselves are not rodent proof. Mason jars, inexpensive, rodent proof, and they're probably the best budget option. The problem with mason jars, they break easily. The glass allows in light, which may quicken oxidation. So you could remedy that by covering it or putting it in a cupboard or a dark room or a pantry. The mason jars need to be vacuum pumped for an airtight seal. And they require oxygen absorbers. Food grade buckets are good for bulk storage. Large quantities of food are exposed to elements once the container is opened. That's whether you have a Mylar bag in there or not. Excuse me. They lose their airtight seal more often than other methods. And the food grade buckets require oxygen absorbers. Mylar type bags and food grade buckets. The bags keep an airtight seal, protecting rice from moisture and oxygen, and the buckets keep Mylar type bags from being physically damaged. Extra expense to purchase both food grade buckets and Mylar type bags. That's a downside. And when you open it, again, large quantities of rice are exposed to the air, require oxygen absorber, and require special equipment and skill. You could say that about anything that you don't just purchase ready-made. It's going to require some trial and error, and you're going to have to buy the equipment to do it. Are all types of rice good for long-term storage? No, all types of rice are not created equal. When it comes to rice, there are thousands of varieties. Long grain or one of the other white rices are the top choice for long-term storage because they store the longest. So here's some information on rice. White rices are long grain, jasmine, basmati. Sorry, I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that right. Arborio and minute rice. Shelf life, if stored properly, long grain 30 plus years, jasmine 30 plus years, basmati 30 plus years, arborio 30 plus years, and minute rice 30 plus years if stored properly. Shelf life, we're not talking about best by dates here. We're talking about, you can still eat it and get some nutrition. Long grain, you're looking at 5 years. All these, you're basically looking at 5 years. Shelf life in the freezer for these rices, all is going to be 30 plus years. The other typical types of rice, brown, black, purple, or wild rice. Brown rice, you're going to get a maximum of 18 months if they're hermetically sealed. If it's in the store packaging, you're going to get 3 to 6 months. And if it's in the freezer, again, 12 to 18 months. And the reason for this is brown rice has oils that increase the speed of oxidation. And so the brown rices, the natural rices go bad faster, oxidize quicker. So white rice, hands down, is better for long-term food storage. Not to say you couldn't mix some brown in there if you're rotating your stock, but it's not something you're going to want to keep on the shelf for 15 years. I'd say here rice with the husk on, like brown rice, has natural oils that cause them to oxidize and spoil quicker than white rice where the shell is removed. One of the issues with white rice is bugs. Most grain, whether it be wheat, rice, whatever, comes with eggs already in the grain when you purchase it from the store. So you have to remedy that somehow. So there's two methods basically. You can freeze rice for 3 days before you store it. I'm going to be honest with you, there's a lot of different articles out there that say different things. This information is from Iowa State University Extension Ag Outreach. They're saying that you freeze rice for 3 days before you store it, and this will kill bug eggs before they hatch, along with pupae, larvae, and grown weevils. Rice weevils is one of the common things you get in, or weevils generally is what you get in a lot of grain. Some people, some articles I've read say it's four days. Some I've read said a week. Some say 2 weeks. And then some say you have to actually track the lifestyle of the bug to make sure that you kill them. This would be okay, I guess, for small batches of rice, or if you're going to do it over a long term, do a little bit at a time. But I don't know, freezing rice when you've got 200 or 300 pounds to do in a pop, that doesn't sound like a reasonable way to do it to me. So what I would do is I would do this number 2 method. I'd say it's the best method. Hermetically seal your rice and throw in oxygen absorbers. Most things can't live in a truly oxygen-free environment. So for that reason, this is a superior method because it kills the bugs and gives years of extra storage without the extra step of freezing. Seal rice in number 10 cans or Mylar bags. Throw in oxygen absorbers or buy rice professionally packaged for long-term storage. I'm going to say, for the most part, if you're going to go with number 10 cans, this is probably the way you're going to do it. You're going to buy it professionally packaged for long-term storage. Most of us aren't going to have the time or the equipment necessary, or the skill for that matter, to be canning our own rice. So an airtight container with no oxygen will kill bug eggs, pupa larvae, and adult rice weevils within 2 weeks. Another method that can be used, I see this, but it doesn't, I don't know. Maybe this will work for you in some situation, like for small portions that maybe you're keeping on the counter that have already been unsealed. But there's some information out there that you can use bay leaves, and there's some other, there's some other herbs that you can use that will keep bugs away from your stored grain. But the issue with that is this only works okay, so let's say weevils don't like bay leaves. Well, you can't seal the rice because if it's sealed, there's no way for the bugs to get out of the bag. So I'm not sure under what situation this would be useful, but I wanted to just get it out there that weevils don't like bay leaves. So that might help you in some situation. But to me, it doesn't seem like a very practical thing to do. I have noticed that a lot of the information for this, and it makes sense to me, is coming from third world countries. Am I allowed to say that? I don't know. But countries that are less likely to have refrigeration, have less reliable electricity. If you're using pots or jugs or something like that, it probably would be good to put bay leaves in your rice because they're not truly airtight. So if you don't have bugs in there already, it might keep the bugs from getting into your storage jar. Store rice long-term in mason jars. Store your rice in mason jars for long-term storage. The benefit of storing this way is that you're really only opening small portions of rice at a time, which is the drawback of using the big buckets. And even to a certain, I don't know. I don't think it's really a drawback with the number 10 cans because it's such a small amount of rice and it's a staple. So you would probably be able to get through 1 can of rice quickly. But the 5-gallon buckets, that's definitely an issue, whereas it's not with mason jars. One 50-pound bag of long grain white rice will fill 33 1-quart mason jars. That's just to give you an idea of how many mason jars you're going to need in relation to the amount of rice you're going to try to store. There's 8 steps to storing rice in mason jars. There's a good video down here, how to vacuum seal dry goods in canning jars. But quickly, 8 steps to storing rice in mason jars. Buy a big bag of rice to make the process worth your while. So it's probably better to do this in bulk and just get some of it knocked out. Freeze your rice for 3 days to kill weevil eggs or not. If you use oxygen absorbers, this will create an environment that kills all the bugs and eggs, and you can skip the freezing process. Distribute the rice into your clean mason jars. Drop a food-grade oxygen absorber into each jar. Place lids on jars and then use like a food saver with a jar attachment to seal the jars. Once sealed, place rings on the jar. Store in a cool, dry place. Long grain white rice in vacuum sealed mason jars with oxygen absorbers should last 30 years if properly stored. Again, keep it away from light. Keep it covered or keep it in a pantry. And that's a video. She talks about how to seal the jars if you're interested. The best way to store basmati rice long-term. The best way to store uncooked basmati rice in a long-term storage pantry is hermetically sealed, oxygen-free container like a number 10 can, or Mylar packaging with oxygen absorber. Store in a cool, dry location for shelf life of 30 plus years. And there's professionally packaged basmati rice that's specifically packaged for long-term storage, so you can buy it. How to store rice long-term? When I think long-term, I'm thinking 10, 15, 20, 30 years. The answer is you can't. You can't store brown rice long-term. Even packaged in hermetically sealed containers with oxygen absorbers, the most extended life you can get is 3 to 6 months. So it's kind of a no-brainer when it comes to bulk storage that, if you're going to do long-term storage, you're going to use one of the white rices. The thing that's sad about that or disheartening a little bit is that the brown rices, the natural rices with the husk still on, are much better for you. They have much more nutrition, but you got to make a choice on that. So this is kind of redundant. This is me saying the same thing. You can rotate brown rice into your regular diet and always have a supply on hand. The thing is, it's going to be hard to do with the rice because that is a really short shelf life. I mean, that's not even a year, 3 to 6 months. So you're going to have to make that decision. Why can't I store brown rice long term? Brown rice has the outer husk attached to the rice kernel, so it has a higher oil content called free fatty acids that oxidize quicker than white rice with the shell removed. So again, the shelf life of brown rice, regardless of how it's packaged, is 3 to 6 months. Is white rice a good survival or emergency food? It's probably, I'd say it's in the top 5. So yes, it is. It's excellent. I say here, white rice is royalty when it comes to long-term food storage. It's an excellent choice as the backbone of any long-term or emergency food pantry. And here's 8 reasons why rice is good for long-term food storage. It's a good source of complex carbohydrates, 30-year shelf life. It's relatively inexpensive. It's easy to find. It's got a 9,000-year track record as a staple food. Currently feeds over half the planet. It's filling. It's a comfort food, and it's a good base food. It goes well with other pantry items. Does instant rice last as long as white rice? It does if it's properly stored. Store instant or minute rice in hermetically sealed Mylar bags or number 10 cans with oxygen absorbers for a 30-plus year shelf life. So minute rice will last as long as white rice if it's properly stored. Stored minute rice will last up to 5 years in store-bought packaging, just like white rice. Don't confuse the 5-year shelf life of instant rice with the best by date because they're different. The best by date for instant rice is 2 years. After that, the rice will begin to decline in quality unless it's hermetically sealed with O2 absorbers. How many cups of white rice in a pound? When you're planning your food pantry, you want to know how to convert the pounds of rice into the number of cups you have, so you know when how much you need for each meal or each recipe, and also to plan for your daily nutritional requirements. And you can go over to, let me see, I'm doing this on the fly, so yeah, I clicked over. So this is another article that, I'm trying to think, I can't remember the title, sorry. I'm going to scroll up. How much food to stockpile per person? You can find that on ReadySquirrel.com. I have a lot of information on here for starting your long-term food storage. And let's see here. So you can actually, this is storage, a 30-year, let me back up. Sorry, I'm mumbling. This shows you, this is from LDS, Latter-day Saints. They're really good at food prep. I'm not LDS, but they're really excellent at long-term food storage. This shows you a breakout of how much you need for one person for 1 year. So you can actually look at 65 pounds of rice, and you can break that out into cups. So I have more information on this article that will make it easier for you to do things like meal planning and figuring the nutritional value of what's in your storage. So let's see. Okay, so back over to the rice article. So I have a rice conversion chart here, pounds to cups, calorie count for bulk storage. I start at 1 pound. I go all the way up to 100. 1 cup of cooked long grain white rice has approximately 206 calories. That's from the USDA. This varies a little bit, but not much. Each rice can be a little bit different. And some of the rices are actually fortified, so that'll change it. Change the nutritional value. So you have to look at whatever rice you buy to see what you've got going on. If I ate just rice for a month, how much would I eat? Obviously, eating just white rice isn't healthy, and it would make for a pretty bland diet. But for fun, let's just run the numbers. So to get the average person's daily caloric intake, you need 2,300 calories per day in a survival situation, and that varies. I also have information on daily calorie count on how much food to stockpile per person on ReadySquirrel.com. Let's just say the average person needs 2,300 calories per day in a survival situation, and it varies from like 2,000 to 3,000 calories depending on how much physical activity is going on. But we'll stick with 2,300 calories today just to figure this out. 1 cup of cooked long grain white rice is 206 calories. So you'd need to eat roughly 11 and a quarter cups of rice per day. Wow, that's a lot of rice to get 2,300 calories. For 30 days, one person needs 69,000 calories. If you ate just rice for 30 days, you would need to eat approximately 337 cups of cooked rice, or 45 pounds of dry white rice. You'd really have to like rice to eat 45 pounds in a month. And of course, nobody's going to eat just rice. You're going to have beans and other things in your long-term storage, but it gives you an idea. I've actually got a link here. How much food to stockpile per person? If you're interested in this article, that article expands quite a bit into daily calorie intake. I have a bunch of charts and a bunch of information over there, so go check it out. I've got a cup conversion ratio for cooked to uncooked white rice. If you're trying to figure out, depending on the recipe you have, it may say you need this many cups of cooked rice, you need this many cups of dry rice. This will give you a conversion. 1 cup of uncooked white rice is going to give you 3 cups of cooked rice, and on down the line. 2, 6, 3, 9, 4, 12. How much rice in a year's supply? You need approximately 237 pounds of white rice for one person to last 365 days. A well-rounded pantry would not depend on just white rice. And again, in that other article that I directed to you to up here, how much food to stockpile per person, it actually breaks the dry stores out. I think it's 65 pounds of white rice is what it requires. A well-rounded pantry would not depend on just white rice as a staple grain. A better storage plan would look something like this. And I actually took this from the article. 132 pounds of wheat, 65 pounds of rice, and 29 pounds of rolled oats, and 21 pounds of pasta. I'm getting ahead of myself. I've got another link there. Okay. Can you survive by only eating white rice? You could survive on long grain white rice for quite some time, but it wouldn't be healthy. White rice can make up a large portion of your diet, but it does not provide your body with protein, essential amino acids, fatty acids, vitamins, and minerals that a healthy body requires. So you definitely wouldn't want to plan to eat just white rice, but you wouldn't starve. Cooking rice, water to rice ratios. This is important for water storage. You need to know how much water you're going to need, how much you'll be able to either purify or have stored. So when you're planning long-term emergency food storage, don't forget about the water you need to prepare the food. Like water, you got 3 to 4 days max. Food, you got 3 weeks. Water is extremely important when it comes to not just hydration or cooking food, but also hygiene. So the ratio for the rice to water when cooking in a regular pan is 1 cup of long grain white rice to 2 cups of water. Rice expands quite a bit when cooked. That's a tip. So make sure your pan is big enough to hold the quantity of rice you're cooking. And I have ratios of rice to water. I've seen recipes also that require a little bit less water. You're going to have to experiment with that. I actually like my rice al dente. Some people like it mushy. So you have to experiment with your own white rice to kind of get a better idea of what kind of water you're going to need. But if you have 1 cup of rice and 2 cups of water, you can make rice if you have heat. 13 steps to cook rice on a stovetop or a campfire. Cooking on a campfire will be more challenging because it's more difficult to control the temperature. And it's going to be, you're going to have to really watch it to keep it from sticking to the pan. Steps to cooking the rice. Bring water to a boil. Season to taste with salt or butter. When the water reaches a rolling boil, add your rice. Bring water back to a boil. Reduce the heat. Cover the cooking pot. And try to keep the rice mixture at just below a boil or a simmer. Rice mixture should have a slow bubbling but not a rapid boil. Cook the rice 17 to 20 minutes. Remove from heat. Let sit 10 minutes so the rice will absorb the remainder of the water. And then stir or fluff your rice with a fork or a spoon. Yum. Time to eat. 8 steps to cooking emergency rice in a thermos. Cooking in a thermos is a method of cooking rice you can use in a survival or off-grid situation. Cooking this way takes less fuel. The title says cooking in a thermos, but you could do this in many different types of portable hiking pots and thermoses, as long as you have a lid that seals and won't leak when it's on its side. You're going to have to experiment with this. Rice doesn't cook really soft this way, but you can eat it. So it may be a little undercooked, but still edible. You can experiment with the process to wire it in. Cold soaking rice, cold soaking is something that's really big for hikers, like on the Appalachian Trail, where you just put, say top ramen, for instance, into a Ziploc bag or a container, put the water in there, shake it up, and then you put it in your backpack while you're hiking. Then you get to your destination, you pull it out and you eat it cold. The top ramen will actually absorb the water and get soft. Rice will not do that, so you can't cold soak it. 8 steps to cooking rice in a thermos. Determine the ratio of rice to water. 1 cup of white rice to 2 cups of water. Pour rice in the thermos. Boil your water. Pour your water into the thermos or container. Place lid on the thermos. Place the container on its side for the most water to rice contact. Wait 2.5 hours and open the container and eat. Again, you're going to have to experiment with that a little bit, but this right here will get you edible rice. What can I use rice for in my pantry? Rice doesn't really have much flavor, so that's a negative, but it also makes it a perfect base for just about any meal. You can eat it for breakfast, lunch, or dinner. We eat a lot of rice in my family. We usually eat it for lunch or dinner with some kind of meat or vegetable mixture, and I put either soy sauce or, Tabasco on my rice. You can cook rice in broth or use bouillon cubes in the water. You can add soy sauce. Soy sauce lasts pretty much forever if it's stored properly in your pantry. It's a good seasoning for meat. It's good on rice. Definitely a superstar when it comes to condiments. You can eat rice with an egg, Say you've got some chickens, or your neighbor has chickens, and you've traded some of your garden produce. Guess what? You can scramble that egg, and you can make yourself a little fried rice with some soy sauce. Mix in butter and honey and eat it for breakfast. Used as a staple with foraged vegetables and meats. You can add just about any edible spice or herb. You can add just about any edible garden produce. Add milk and fruit and eat like oatmeal for breakfast. Add a dollop of peanut butter. So that's about it. This is a pretty short article, guys. I hope you find this helpful. Again, you can find a link to the other article, which is more comprehensive, on ReadySquirrel.com. I just have to find it. Where did that go? Oh, how much food to stockpile per person? So you can find a link to this more comprehensive article if you go over to ReadySquirrel.com and read this article. I'll have a link down below in the YouTube video. So most of us are not going to be able to get hermetically sealed rice, or let me back up. Most of us are not going to be able to make our own hermetically sealed rice, so there's some things that you can do. I do not have an affiliation with these, but I'm just giving you an idea. If you go to Google and you look up white rice number 10 cans, you're going to get a ton of listings. I just wanted to give you an idea. So this is My Patriot Supply. Never used their stuff. Don't really know much about them, but it gives you an idea of expense. So this is hermetically sealed, number 10 can, 30-year shelf life if left unopened, 5.6 pounds of white rice. And let's see. Okay, so that's $9.95. So you can look at some of these websites and you can you can compare the price of like bulk bags of rice like you'd get at Walmart or Costco, and you can compare that to this. Yes, this stuff is going to be a lot more expensive, but you could incorporate it and buy a little bit at a time. Buy the big bags of rice and then slowly start incorporating white rice in number 10 cans. I have not used this site yet. I get a lot of my information from LDS. Again, I'm not LDS, but they do a great job at long-term food storage. And they have, I'm trying to find out where that link is. You can go over to this link. Let me see if I can drag this down. providentliving.churchofjesuschrist.org food storage. You can go over to that link. And they actually you can buy stuff online at the home storage centers. They used to call them canning centers. Found that out reading, but you can't actually can your own stuff there now. But you can buy it at the centers, and you can actually you can order stuff online also. So you might want to check them out. They have a product page, and you can actually get other stuff in the number 10 cans. If you go to that more comprehensive article, I actually have a year's supply for one person and a year's supply for 4 people broken out, and I'm using LDS information on that. So these things would directly apply if you're going for that or shooting for that long-term storage. Okay, guys, that's about all I've got for today. I hope you guys are having a great day. Take care of you and yours, and I'll see you next time. Have a great day.